Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Myaladdinz, Magic Your Life. This is a special presentation brought to you each month from a world-class speaker from around the world. This is only for Myaladdin members, and we'd like to welcome all our members from Vietnam, Singapore, from all the different countries around Asia, Taiwan, Japan, Thailand, Indonesia, all of you joining us from around the world today. Want to remind you as we go about this program that no audio or video recording is allowed. And I'd also like to thank Zoe as our interpreter for our Vietnamese. So thank you everyone for joining us tonight. As I mentioned, this is a program that we have available each month. We also have a weekly program called Magic Your Life Weekly Wisdom. Each week, we will have presentations that will teach you personal insights and wisdom that will add a little spark of magic to your life, to your business, and to your relationships. Like planting a seed, these hour-long mini talks help you to grow, thrive, and blossom for future success. Our next session will be coming this coming Thursday on October the 8th at 8 p.m. GMT plus 8. You can register for free in the e-bazaar of the Myaladdin app. Also coming up in the future, we have Anthony Robbins' Unleash the Power Within Virtual. This is an incredible opportunity to learn from the world's #1 personal development coach, Anthony Robbins, and it's going to be in virtual, online, coming straight into your home through the internet. This is an incredible opportunity because normally you have to travel in person to attend one of these events, but in this case, you can actually attend from your home. It's going to be taking place on October 22nd through 26th, and it's going to be on UK time. And you'll learn how to identify and destroy the invisible enemy in your life. You'll master a 4-step success formula. You'll also learn how to eliminate stress and eliminate being overwhelmed. You'll be given ways to create unlimited natural energy in your life and overcome the real cause of depression. We know a lot of people in the world are depressed today. If you're looking for some spark, some excitement, how to get your life on track and bring that extra added energy to your life, this will be an incredible program for you. And that's available in the e-bazaar as well. The date for that is actually October 22nd through 26th. And as I mentioned, it'll be coming to you through the internet in virtual and 360-degree vision. So you'll be able to see Anthony Robbins surrounded by all of the people from around the world in 360 degrees. We also have coming up Date with Destiny. This will be coming in December 4th through the 9th, and it's on USA timing. This is another incredible opportunity. Normally, you have to travel, pay for hotels, and spend time taking the journey to enjoy this event. This event is taking place in the United States, and because of COVID-19 and the restrictions on travel and large groups of people, you have an incredible opportunity to learn from your home. Again, this is by Anthony Robbins, and he'll be giving you 6 days of live training in a supportive environment of total immersion. Date with Destiny is a follow-up to UPW, and it'll be an incredible opportunity to take both of these together. You'll learn how to create your own life-changing experience, connect with your ultimate purpose, and ignite your passion to achieve the ultimate vision for your life, your career, your finances, your health, and your relationships. You'll get a clear understanding of what truly motivates you, your thoughts, your feelings, and behaviors, and build those to a personal breakthrough. You'll create passionate relationships. you'll find your purpose, you'll reshape your life. So make sure you take advantage of this opportunity that's also available in the e-bazaar. As I mentioned, we're getting ready to bring in one of the world's most renowned speakers on personal finance. There's no audio or video recording. As I introduce him, you'll want to give him a very warm welcome. He's best known as the author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad. It's the #1 personal finance book of all time. Robert Kiyosaki has challenged and changed the way tens of millions of people around the world think about money. He's an entrepreneur, an educator, an investor who believes the world needs more entrepreneurs who will create jobs. With his perspective on money and investing that often contradicts conventional wisdom, he's earned an international reputation for talking directly and for courage, and he's become a passionate and outspoken advocate for financial education. Robert and Kim Kiyosaki are founders of the Rich Dad Company, a financial education company, and creator of the Cash Flow Games. In 2014, the company leveraged the global success of Rich Dad Games with the launch of a new and breakthrough offering in mobile and online gaming, as well as Rich Dad's Clutch, a digital learning platform. Robert Kiyosaki has been heralded as a visionary who has a gift for making complex things simple. He talks about ideas related to money, investing, finance, and economics, and he shared his personal journey to financial freedom in ways that resonate with audiences of all ages and all backgrounds. His core principles and messages, like your house is not an asset, and invest for cash flow, and savers are losers, have ignited a firestorm of criticism and ridicule, only to have been played out correctly on the world economic stage over the past decade in ways that were both unsettling and also prophetic. His point of view is that old advice, go to college, get a job, save money, get out of debt, invest for the long term and diversify, are obsolete advice in today's fast-paced information age. His Rich Dad philosophies and messages challenge the status quo, and his teachings encourage people to take initiative to become financially educated and play an active role in investing for their future. He's the author of 24 books, and he's been a featured guest with media outlets in every corner of the world, from Fox News, CNN, the BBC, Al Jazeera, GBTV, and PBS, to Larry King Live, Oprah, People's Deadly, the Sydney Morning Herald, the Doctors, Straits Times, Bloomberg, NPR, US Today, and hundreds of others. And his books have topped international bestseller lists for more than 2 decades. He continues to teach and inspire audiences around the world. Robert's most frequent books, Why the Rich Are Getting Richer, and More Important Than Money, were published in the spring of this year to mark the 20th anniversary of the release of Rich Dad, Poor Dad. That book and its messages are viewed around the world as a classic in personal finance, and they have stood the test of time. Why the Rich Are Getting Richer, released 2 decades after the bestseller Rich Dad, Poor Dad, is positioned as Rich Dad Graduate School. He's also co-authored 2 books with Donald Trump prior to his successful bid for the White House. As we welcome our next speaker to the stage, I know you'll want to give him a very big welcome. Robert, are you ready?
Hello, New Tycoon. This is Robert Kiyosaki. I'm very happy to talking to you all the way in Vietnam. I know it's afternoon there and it's midnight here in Phoenix, but nonetheless, I'm very excited to be talking to you. And why I'm especially excited is because this is the most important thing you could do. There's nothing more important today than investing in your entrepreneurial education, your financial education, because as you know, the world has changed so dramatically. And I'm just glad I had a rich dad who warned me that this time was coming. You see, the world, because of America, is going into a serious decline. You know that, I know that. And it cannot be stopped. So the people that get wiped out are the people that are clinging to old ideas. So the reason New Tycoon is important is because the people that will do better are people that actually seek information, seek new teachers, seek new skills. And you will do well as independent business people rather than employees clinging to a job. So anyway, I'm honored to be part of you, and good afternoon, Vietnam. Also, I thank MC Ken Sapp and mention Richard and Veronica Tan of Success Resources. They've been my dear friends since 1996. In fact, Richard and Veronica were the very first people that allowed me to make the presentation to tell the story of Rich Dad, Poor Dad. So it's Richard and Veronica who first allowed me to tell the story of my rich dad and my poor dad. So I'll be talking to you today about what my rich dad taught me about business, about being an entrepreneur and being an investor. And so this is another friend of mine. You probably know him as President Trump, and I know a lot of people hate him, but I worked with him total for 8 years. We've written 2 books together because we're very concerned about education. You know, our schools have no financial education in schools. So whether you love him or hate him, he's very much pro-education, like the New Tycoon puts out here. So we're supposed to write a 3rd book together, but one day he called and he says, I'm sorry, I can't make the 3rd book. I was interviewing him on Rich Dad Radio and says, I'm sorry, there's no 3rd book because I'm going to run for president. So then he ran for president, he won, and I'm not a Republican or a Democrat, but I'm still going to vote for him. I know him, I know his family, I know the people he works with, his business. They're fantastic people. So please don't listen to everything you hear in the news or in the print and all this. You know, Trump does say some things that upset people. But my experience of him, he's a very good man. My wife loves him. He's a lot of fun. He's very smart, and he's straightforward. So anyway, this was the second book I wrote with Donald Trump. It's The Midas Touch, and it's for people who want to be entrepreneurs. So getting back to my rich dad here, I'll give you a few lessons. You may have, if you've read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, you've probably heard them before. But these are the basic lessons for those of you who want to be rich tycoons. And it goes to this. This is from Rich Dad, Poor Dad. This is the thing of a financial statement, which you don't learn in school, is income, expense, assets, liabilities. Now, this is the difference here. My poor dad, PhD, good man, went to Stanford, Northwestern University, Chicago. This was poor dad. All he wanted was a job. And he got to get a good job. And they also wanted to keep his expenses low. He says, live. So my poor dad, go to school, get a job, and then live below your means. That was his life. And that's not the life I wanted. This was my rich dad here. And it says what the rich do is they acquire assets or they invest in assets. And the trick with Rich Dad was he used liabilities here, so he could use debt to buy his assets. And what happened to my poor dad, he would use debt to buy liabilities. Very, very big difference. That small little distinction is the big difference. So the reason I've made millions and millions of dollars, I use debt to buy real estate. So today I have about 7,000 rental units. And every month, 7,000 rental units put cash flow in my pocket. So I don't need a job. So I want to explain that again to you. So this was poor dad. And for those of you who want to be rich, you may want to get out of your mind the idea of go to school, get a job, and live below your means, because you don't get rich thinking that way. Now, if you're going to be a rich tycoon, you want to be here. You want to be the person who acquires businesses. So I own a number of businesses. I own a lot of real estate. I have no paper assets. I don't own any stocks, bonds, mutual funds, or ETFs. Not that I'm against them. I just don't need to invest in them. And the next one are commodities. And commodities are gold, silver, oil, Bitcoin. So the reason the rich are getting richer is very, very simple. And why what you're learning at New Tycoon is to be here. If you were in school, you'd be like my poor dad, looking for job security and a steady paycheck. And what you're learning at New Tycoon is here. This is very important today because, as you know, the stock market is at all-time high. And the reason it's all-time high is because the U.S. government, the Fed and Wall Street, the Federal Reserve Bank and Wall Street, are printing trillions of dollars. So that's why I've been buying gold since 1972. I bought my first gold coin in Hong Kong. It was a Krugerrand, South African Krugerrand. And I paid $50 for it. At the time I was flying off Vietnam, flying off a place called Da Nang, and I was looking for gold in Da Nang and stuff like this, but I didn't get any. So I had to go to Hong Kong, get my first gold coin in 1972, and I bought my first silver in 1964. So the reason I'm a relatively rich man is because I never saved dollars. I don't save US dollars. I save gold and silver and today Bitcoin. So if you're going to be a rich person, the secret to long-term wealth is found in the commodity section. So gold and silver and Bitcoin hold their value. So like I said, back in 1972, when I was in Vietnam, then went to Hong Kong to buy my first Krugerrand. That Krugerrand was about $50 US in 1972. Today, it's about $2,000, and I have thousands of them. I just don't save dollars. I save gold, silver, and Bitcoin. So what I'm saying to you at New Tycoon is this is where the rich get richer, and this is where the poor, middle class get poor, because they make a lot of money here, and their largest single expense are taxes. So you have a job, and your money goes straight to the government. If I'm acquiring assets, I bypass taxes legally. And you can do the same thing in Vietnam, but you have to have good advice here. So those are some of the simple reasons why the rich are getting richer. With this in my rich dad and my poor dad, and you look at this here. Debt made my rich dad richer, and debt made my poor dad poor because my poor dad bought a house. So very simply, that's it. I mean, you don't have to know much more than that. So if a picture's worth 1,000 words, let me show you this picture here. So this is the picture here. This was Rich Dad. He really valued his financial statement, and this here is a financial statement. And this is what Poor Dad valued. He valued his college degree, his PhD. And the reason Poor Dad was poor was very simply because this is what he thought was important, this. And this is what Rich Dad thought was important here. Those are some of the very simple differences out there. It's found in this little picture here. So by attending Tycoon, you're saying, that's not that interesting to me, but this is very interesting to me. And that's why if you stick with the program, you'll be much, much richer. So the second book in the Rich Dad series was this book here, The Cash Flow Quadrant. So Rich Dad Poor Dad was number one. Rich Dad Poor Dad was about this. And this is the Cash Flow Quadrant. Many of you read it. It's a very important book. But these are the four different people that make up the world of business. This is the quadrant. E stands for employee. That was my poor dad. S stands for specialist or small business owner. You know, somebody who, like your plumber or your electrician or a doctor or a lawyer. But this is where Rich Dad hung out at. So again, poor dad thought this was important. My mom thought this was important. My mom wanted me to be a doctor, a specialist, but you have to be smart. And I'm not very smart. So she says, I can't be a doctor. So I came over here, and this here is Rich Dad. So what New Tycoon is teaching you guys is how to think on this side here, because our schools teach people to think on this side. And that's a very, very big difference, because these guys always use the same words. You know, they'll always say, I need a college degree. I'm looking for a high-paying, safe, secure job. These are the people that are being wiped out today due to the pandemic of the Wuhan disease or COVID-19. Jobs are lost and lost and lost. So are these guys here. Many restaurants in America are going bankrupt. The other thing that's happening here, and why this is no good, is in 2021, next year, the first driverless trucks are entering the highway. So imagine all these big semi-trailers. They're going to just start slowly, but pretty soon they won't need drivers for these trucks. And think of the ripple effect. So you have no trucks. In America, there's 3 million truck drivers. You know, in Vietnam, they're probably the same amount. But if you have a driverless truck, they don't need you anymore. So these guys will go out of business, but it's not just the driver. The ripple effects, you know, it's like one guy loses his job, it affects his family, affects businesses, affects everybody. So the reason I commend you for being part of New Tycoon is very simply because you're going to learn to be over here. You're going to learn to be an entrepreneur and an investor, because that's the secret to success today. Not job security and not being a doctor or a lawyer. There's another reason that is important to realize. The other reason it's important to know financial education is this word here, taxes. These are E's and S's. They pay the highest taxes. So this guy over here, the poor person, in America, and it's true most of the world, they'll pay about 40% in taxes. In America, these people pay 60% in taxes. And in America and the rest of the world, these guys pay 20%, and the investors can pay 0% in taxes legally. So this is all part of your financial education, and why I commend you for being part of this program here. Because education is what makes you richer, not money. You're not making a lot of money, because there's a lot of people make a lot of money here, but it just goes out this way. That's silly. That's really, really silly. So the object is to make a lot of money here and keep the money coming back here. And that's how you get richer. But if you make a lot of money here, again, you just pay higher taxes, because that's what traps the people in the E and the S. So I congratulate you for being part of the New Tycoon series. because that's a big part of your financial education, is you've got to know that this here is more important than a job. And the thing I like about this, I'm an old man now, but I've been collecting gold and silver and Bitcoin for years. It doesn't take any intelligence. It just takes discipline. So sometimes I buy one coin, sometimes I wait a while and buy more. But that's what made me rich. On top of that, I have businesses. And the way I really made the most money was in real estate. And the reason I like real estate is I can use debt to buy real estate. I don't have to have money. That's the difference. And the more this real estate puts money in my pocket, the less tax I pay. That's the game. So my real estate, the 7,000 rental units, make money here, but because of tax law and accounting rules, I don't have to pay the taxes legally. And you can do the same thing. Just have to have a good accountant and a good tax attorney in Vietnam. You'll do very, very well. So let me talk to you one more thing about why it's smart you're doing what you're doing. Every human being every human being has 4 intelligences. One is mental. I was never very good there. Another is emotional. One of the reasons people are not successful is because of fear. Our schools teach you don't make mistakes, so it's a fear of failing. To be a new tycoon, you've got to overcome that fear of failing and do that smartly. So emotions are important. So is joy. Happiness is also an emotion, and sometimes people make stupid mistakes when they're really, really happy. The other type of education or intelligence is physical. If you learn to play golf, golf is mental, emotional, and physical. Like you can't learn to play golf if you're not good physically. So you got to improve that intelligence. And the last intelligence, which is the most important, is spiritual intelligence. And that's what keeps you going to overcome any doubts you have about yourself and all this. There's a thing called self-esteem. And if you're going to be successful as an entrepreneur, your self-esteem has got to get stronger. It's your self-perception. It's what's going on inside of you gets stronger, then your success goes up. But money alone, just making more money, doesn't necessarily make you more successful. So the more you focus on getting these intelligences stronger, you become more successful. And that's a long way of saying, and that's why my wife and I, Kim, created this board game here, the cash flow board game, because the board game is not just mental. The board game involves mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual. And the great thing about the board game is, you can play money. And the reason many people are not successful, their fear of losing money is so high, they can't think. Like this does all of their thinking. And what happens is when you get really emotional, you freeze up. So the purpose of the cash flow board game is to give your spiritual strength time to get stronger. So you get stronger physically, mentally, emotionally, and mentally. But that's what you're learning about right now. One of the reasons my poor dad was not successful is he couldn't control this here. He was so afraid of failing. He was so afraid of not having a paycheck. He was so afraid of it. And so that's why he stayed an employee. And when he stayed an employee, once again, And so that's why my poor dad stayed here. The reason he stayed there, so the reason my poor dad got stuck, and he got stuck here, and he got stuck here, was because he was really smart mentally. He was good in school, but his emotional intelligence was very low, which froze him here, and he didn't have the courage to leave this place and come here. So you, as part of New Tycoon, your job is to get emotionally more intelligent. We all have fears, we all have doubts, we all get depressed, but your intelligence will overcome that. You have to have know the language of money, know what finance is, business, and all this. You have to learn how to sell, how to talk to other people, because if you can't sell, there's no income. But most important is your spiritual intelligence, is how do you fall down and stand back up? When you fail and you fall down, if you don't stand up, you don't get smarter here. But if you have the strength to stand back up, you get smarter here. So that's the reason my wife and I started the cash flow board game, was very simply so you could engage all four intelligences. But let me show you where that works out to. So this is kind of the game board here inside the game, but this here is your financial statement. And what the game is teaching you to do, and what New Tycoon is teaching you to do, is to focus here in assets. Because this is the most important thing. This here is your statement of cash flow, this income statement, this is your balance sheet. So this is all financial literacy. And most school teachers are not financially literate. They don't have one of these. So if you're going to be an entrepreneur, you have to have one of these. If you're an employee, you don't need these things. So that's why, I know some of you don't like the guy, but President Trump and I, why we joined forces is, to be successful in life, you need all four intelligences. People hate the guy. They really hate him. And I know him as a good man. He gets accused of everything. But if he's not really strong here, he could never be president. So I'm not saying you should be president of the United States and all that, but if you're going to be successful enough life, every day as you get older and work and learn and all this, you want to get more successful and more intelligent physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. Like a lot of people my age today, all they had was a job and they played it too safe. Now they have no money. They're already, they have to retire, but there's no money to retire on. It's because emotionally they played it too safe. They're afraid of failing, and they're afraid of losing money. That's not good mental intelligence here. So please remember this, it's all four intelligence is required to be successful today. And the spiritual intelligence is the most important, because when you fail, spiritual intelligence gets you to stand back up again. And that's what you're learning with New Tycoon. And so part of your four intelligences, a lot of times I like to use pictures, because pictures involve your right brain. A picture's worth 1,000 words. So take a look at this picture over here. One of the reasons why school teachers are not rich is they only teach you to see one side of a coin. They say either you're right, you're wrong, and I'm right, you're wrong. If you're going to be intelligent, you have to see both sides of a coin, because all coins have three sides. One side is heads, other side is tails, but intelligence is standing on the edge of the coin and looking at both sides. So there's a lot of people that really hate Trump, but they don't see the good things he's done. I'm not pitching Trump. I'm just telling you, they're so blinded because they hate him so much. Or a lot of people are so afraid that they can't see there's millions and millions and millions of dollars in opportunities in front of you. All they see, the economy is bad. The economy is bad. But on the other side of the coin, the economy could be great. So the real test of the four intelligences is not whether you're right or you're wrong. The real test is, can you stand on the edge of the coin and then see both sides? So right now, the economy looks really bad for millions of people. But on the other side of the coin, the economy is really good. So the reason you're part of New Tycoon is so that you increase your foreign intelligences, but also you can stand on the edge and see where the economy is bad, but sometime where it's bad, it's the opportunity. Like right now, I'm making more money than ever before because people want financial education. So the economy is bad, but I'm making more money. Okay, now if the economy is bad for you, then all you have to do is engage your intelligences and see the other side. That's one of the most important things. The reason my poor dad was poor was because he had his, one of the reasons my poor dad was poor was because he had his PhD. And in school, you have to be right and everybody else is wrong. That's what PhDs do. If you're going to be an entrepreneur, it's best you see both sides of the coin. Your opportunity is found in darkness. If everybody's doing it, I don't know if you want to do it. Like, Apple is one of the biggest stocks. I should have bought Apple years ago or Amazon, but I didn't. But there's still more opportunities than ever before because I can create my own opportunity. I can create my own assets. So those are some of the things I'd like to have you understand here is don't get stuck in the right, wrong, and all this. You have four intelligences, but the most important intelligence is to stand on the edge and see both sides. So the next time somebody tells you you're wrong, just know they're saying they're right. And your challenge is to know why what they think is wrong is your right. So when you're a new tycoon, you're an entrepreneur, you've really got to see all three sides. And all three sides require all four intelligences. One more thing about intelligences. These are markets here. There's an old saying as an investor in the I quadrant is that the bull goes up the stairs and the bear goes out the window. So what happened is up until 2020, the world economy was doing really well. Then in 2020, the bear and the market crashed. Again, going back to these four intelligences, what you want to see is in the crash, is the crash good or bad? Well, the facts are crashes are good and bad. There's actually more opportunities in the crash. So that's why in 2020, as I'm speaking to you, my friends in Vietnam, this is what's happening to the world economy. But in my reality is I'm going to make more money on this side. I see more opportunity, although these people here see nothing. So those are very, very important points about being an entrepreneur. Remember, bulls go up the stairs, the bears go out the window. We're going out the window. 2020 to 2030, the U.S. will go into depression. Now, is that good news or bad news? If the U.S. is in depression, some of these people will be really big losers, and these people will be big winners. But it's the same depression. Do you want to see this depression as the worst thing that happens to you or the best thing that happens to you? So that's why I want to just say it, and I'll say it again because I'm into education. Not the garbage, not the kind of education these guys study. These guys only know this. They're very smart people. My poor dad was very, very smart, but he was terrified. He was so afraid of losing that he was frozen here. He was paralyzed here because he didn't have this here. So the problem with most people who go to school and they're very successful here, this is all they got. But what my rich dad had, he had his financial statements. And he knew if he was doing good or bad, right or wrong. So once again, let me say this here. The bull goes up the stairs. We've been going up the stairs since 1971. In 2020, we're going down. we're going into the biggest crash in world history. And you are in the best place you can be. Because when this comes down, there's more opportunity here than here. Let me say it again. You of New Tycoon are in the best place because there's more opportunity here than up here. But you have got to prepare your mind, your emotions, your physical and your spiritual intelligences to take advantage of the whole thing. Let me talk to you about one more book that I came out with a while ago. It's called Fake Money, Fake Teachers, Fake Assets. Okay? And the reason the world's in trouble is because we have fake money, fake teachers, and fake assets. You know, when the stock market crashes, there's a lot of guys going to say, I wish I wasn't in it. But for the entrepreneur, it's really a good time. But I think the most important lesson here is this here. In English, it's called, this is David, this is Goliath. This is the big corporation, this is the small entrepreneur. The small entrepreneur can beat the big guy with this here. So this here is the information, the knowledge, the intelligence you get at New Tycoon. This is going to prepare you for the future because these guys are going to fall. The big corporations are going to fall. Look at the airlines are in serious trouble. Shipping companies are in trouble. China is in serious trouble because of manufacturing, because they're in a trade war. A lot of big companies are going to die because of the Corona crisis or the Wuhan crisis, the pandemic. But the little guy, it's best to be the little guy in 2020 and beyond. Because this here, this little thing is what you're getting today. It's called knowledge. It's called information. It's preparing not to have the right answers, but to have the strength that during the crisis to get stronger mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically. So every time you fall down, stand back up. Ask yourself, what did I need to learn? Because that's what these guys don't. They fall down, they stay down. But you have the better opportunity now as a little guy with knowledge. And this little slingshot is knowledge. So before I close, I want to talk to you about failure. Because I have failed many times. You know, I started first nylon and Velcro surfer mold business. It failed. I was in the rock and roll business. I worked with Duran Duran, Police, Van Halen, Boy George. Made a lot of money and also failed. But each time I was getting smarter and stronger on all four intelligences. So I'll leave you a story about where I learned about this here. So the cash flow game engages all four intelligences. When I was flying, I hate to say this, in Vietnam, I went down 3 times. I crashed 3 times. I wasn't shot down, it was just my engines kept quitting. So one of the great things about being a pilot in the US Marine Corps was they trained you this way, this way, this way. So I'll tell you a story, true story. Is one day we were flying a strike into a place called Quang Tri. And we were losing the war. America was losing. And the North Vietnamese were coming down. None of us wanted to be the last guys to die. So I was on an aircraft carrier and I'm a gunship pilot. So the 4 gunships lift off first, followed by the transport pilots carrying all the troops in it. So as I'm flying, so here's my little aircraft carrier. Vietnam is 27 miles away. We're sitting on this carrier and I'm flying what's called a racetrack pattern off while the troop transport helicopters are coming up ready to go into Quang Tri. And I'm sitting up there twisting around and all of a sudden I look down at my gauges. And at flight school in Florida, where I went to flight school, they trained us very well. When I saw this one gauge on my thing flicker, I knew my engine was going to quit. And I had no warning, so I'm up at 1,500 feet. So as soon as the engine quit, it goes boom. So let me ask this question. Here I am, a gunship, 2 pilots, 2 gunners, and a crew chief, 5. We have ammunition, rockets, and machine guns. The aircraft went like this. And because they trained us, like you're being trained today at New Tycoon, when failure hits, this all comes in. Mental, emotional, physical, spiritual. The aircraft engine quit and it drops like a rock. Now the thing most people do, if they're emotionally not strong, they want to pull back. So what kills most pilots is when the engine quits, they pull back. It's the worst thing you can do. We were trained and the engine quits. We push the power down and we push the nose of the aircraft forward. Power off, nose forward. So at 1,500 feet, instead of going like this and falling backwards, the aircraft went like this. And we had to stare at what we call the eyes of death. So I'm flying down, I'm seeing the water coming up at us at high speed. I'm going, holy mackerel. And I think, we could die in less than a minute. The aircraft is falling. And immediately I go on the air and I call the aircraft carrier and said, Mayday, 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 Echo Whiskey 96, engine failure going in, Mayday, Mayday, Mayday. Meanwhile, the crew operating in precision. Doors are coming off, machine guns are going out, rockets are going out. We're lightening up the aircraft for the crash. All the doors are open and the aircraft is going straight down. But I had practiced this day after day. Every day in flight school, we practice this. Every day in advanced gun schools, we practice this. Now, in Vietnam, it was a real thing. We're going down. We're going to die today if I hadn't practiced this. The aircraft's coming up, water's coming, aircraft's going down, water's coming up, and it just went silent. Everything went really quiet. And I felt like I just kind of left my body. I said, what happened? And the aircraft is going down inside. There's no sound. It's just this aircraft falling. And we can see the water coming up. And and there wasn't any fear. It was just quiet. And at the very last second, just before we hit the water, as they train you in flight schools, you rock your nose forward like this. So the aircraft's going like this, straight, and it goes like this. And now we're flying straight along the water like this. There's no engine. It's just silent. It's just spiritual, just quiet. And we keep flying along, flying above the water, no engine, blades are turning. And just as we were trained, just like you're being trained to think like an entrepreneur today, the last minute as the aircraft start running out of speed, only then do I pull back on my stick so the nose of the aircraft goes like this. And at that point, I pull the power like this. The aircraft goes and sinks silently into the water. Training, practice, all four intelligence. The aircraft sinks. The aircraft rolls to the right. The blade hits the water. I can see it just hit. And the thing goes, I don't know what happened, but something happened. It tore the transmission of the aircraft off. The aircraft went upside down and we got out. So I count one crew chief, second gunner, third gunner up, and then where's my co-pilot? And my co-pilot was on to my right, and at the last second, he pops up. And I was never so happy to see anybody my whole life. Because of all the training, of our education, of our practice, all 5 of us got out of that aircraft and were rescued 4 hours later. So when I talk about these 4 intelligences, they're important to be a pilot, they're important to be an entrepreneur, but they're important to anybody who's going to be successful in life. And so real education is not this. Real education is knowing your financial statement and getting control of all 4 intelligences. And you all have 4 intelligences. If you will take the time from today on with New Tycoon to keep strengthening your mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual intelligence, you'll do very, very well in life. But if you're like most people, you quit when it gets tiring, you don't want to go to, you don't want to do it anymore, your spirit dies too. So mentally you get weaker. So once again, I'm going to say this. In 2020, the world changed. I cannot believe how much it changed. Millions and millions of people all over the world, these people are getting crushed. Employees are losing their job. Small businesses are going out. But these are the people that will do very well. And that's you. You're in the right place at the right time, studying with the right people. So the final word is this. Remember, when it comes to intelligences, all coins have three sides. There's nothing right or wrong. All things are right and all things are wrong. As the economy worsens, just know, as the economy worsens and many people start to lose, this will be your biggest opportunity here. So I want to congratulate you. I want to thank New Tycoon for allowing me to speak to you. I'm very, very pro-education, just like my friend Donald Trump, now President Trump. We're very, very much in favor of entrepreneurial and financial education. So thank you, congratulations. It's a great world, but it's going to be an interesting time for the next 10 years. Make it a good one. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Robert. For those of you who came in a little bit late, I took some notes of what Robert just talked about. So I'm going to get someone to take a photograph of this, and we'll go through the notes for those of you who were in part of the session and also who came in a little bit late. But while someone's doing that for me, I'll remind you about the upcoming events for Myaladdinz. Just give me a second to share my screen. So somebody's going to take a picture of my visual notes for you so we can do a review of that. While we're waiting for that to happen, give me just a couple of minutes. Let's look at what we're going to be doing in the upcoming weeks for Myaladdinz. There's some offers that are exclusive for Myaladdinz members. Like Robert Kiyosaki was just on with us from the United States and talking about what's happening in the world today and how Myaladdinz, sometimes he uses the word New Tycoon because that's our company name, but how Myaladdinz can actually help you to be more successful in the future. We do this every month. We also have coming up for November, Nick Vujicic. Nick Vujicic is actually quite an incredible speaker and person. I've got to meet him several times and learn from him. He was born with no arms and no legs, and yet he does incredible things. He says that life is basically what you make of it. And you have an opportunity to actually manifest your potential to make life fulfilling, regardless of your circumstances. And he'll give you practical advice to leading a life of happiness and fulfillment by trust, developing relationships, by finding strength for each day. And he talks about how everything starts with our mind, with the way that we think. It's all about how you think about things. It's in a sense kind of what Robert Kiyosaki just mentioned about two sides of the coin. Nick could have looked at his life and said, I have no arms, I have no legs, I'm useless. I can't do anything. But if you look at the other side of the coin, it's giving him incredible opportunities. He swims, he skydives, he lives a life filled with hope, aspiration, and ambition. When you think that, hey, I can't go on, I can't continue, things are too difficult, everything looks impossible, you can look at Nick and learn from Nick and realize that whatever situation you're in, you have two arms, you have two legs, you can do anything. If he can do it, you can learn to do it yourself as well. That's going to be on November 7th, same time as this session. And you can already register in the eBazaar after we get finished with this session together. You can actually go in and register for the next session. We also have Magic Your Life every single week. And for this Magic Your Life every single week, we have different speakers. We have Richard Tan. I'll also usually be sharing something, as well as Vivian. And it's an opportunity to get personal insights and wisdom to give you something every single week that can actually help you to be more successful. It'll add a little spark of magic to your life, to your business, and also to your relationships. It's kind of like planting a seed. These little talks will help you to grow, thrive, and blossom for future success. And the next one is this coming Thursday, and it's absolutely free. You'll hear from our chairman, Richard Tan, from Vivian and myself, and we'll be sharing with you those little seeds, those little sparks of magic that can make your life more successful. Just like Robert Kiyosaki said, in Myaladdinz, it's all this training, all this learning that's going to help you be successful for the future. We also have Tony Robbins, Unleash the Power Within, which is a virtual seminar. It's coming up in October 22nd through 26th. That's very, very near. It's a live virtual 360-degree event. It's an incredible opportunity to learn from the world's #1 personal development coach, Anthony Robbins. And if you've been to his live program, you know that this is probably one of the most incredible opportunities you can have to change your life. The advantage of this one is it's online. You don't need to book a ticket to Australia or the US or UK. You can actually learn from your own home. You don't need a hotel. You don't need you don't need travel expenses. You can enjoy it from the comfort of your home and learn those powerful tools, psychology, and strategies that will change your life. It'll help you to master the 4-step success formula, to identify and destroy the invisible enemies in your life that are stopping you from moving forward. He'll help you to eliminate stress. The world's in a lot of stress today. Many people are feeling overwhelmed. He'll teach you how to overcome that to be more successful. And when you're lacking in energy, when your life seems to be not where you want it to be, he'll give you ways to create unlimited natural energy. And you'll be doing it live in the sessions at this event. He has people joining him. You'll be jumping around. You'll be singing. It's the next best thing to a live event. But the biggest part of it is that you can join it anywhere in the world. And you'll get the unfair advantage to help you move forward, especially in this time. During this time of COVID-19, when a lot of people are on standstill, they're paused. This is the chance for you to shoot forward, to skyrocket your success, and unleash the power within is that opportunity for you. You can register in the eBazaar. Again, this is only for Myaladdinz members. It's going to be on London time. So the time will be slightly different depending on where you are in the world. There's also translation, but the translation is charged separately. We also have coming up Date with Destiny. It's also a virtual event, which means it's online. It's in the USA from December the 4th through the 9th. So it's on US timing. That means for some of you in Asia, you're going to need to sleep during your days and be up during the night. But this is an incredible opportunity. If you think Anthony Robbins' UPW is incredible, it's only the stepping stone to Date with Destiny. It gives you so much more. It's a 6-day live event with Tony. You're going to be able to enjoy it from your home, connect with your ultimate purpose in life, and also learn how to build your health, your career, your life, your finances, and your relationships. You'll gain a better and deeper understanding of what truly motivates you, your thoughts, your feelings, and your behaviors to give you personal breakthrough. You'll create passionate relationships. You'll find purpose and live that purpose, and you can change your life. It's also available in the e-bazaar, and it's only for Myaladdinz members. Again, translation is available, but it's charged separately. And remember, if you get the programs for Date with Destiny or UPW, all you need to do is to go into the e-bazaar of your mobile app, tap on the event that you would like to attend. Nick Vujicic and Magic Your Life Weekly is absolutely free. Date with Destiny and Unleash Your Power Within, you can also get there, and you get an 80% back in reward points. So this is an incredible chance to change your life. 2 big dates, October 22nd and early December. And please sign up and join us for next week's session with Richard Tan, and also sign up for next month's free session with Nick Vujicic. If you enjoyed Robert Kiyosaki, you're also going to love Nick Vujicic. So I've got the video, the scan of my notes now. So what we're going to do is I'm going to change over to those notes. Somebody's given them to me, taking a photo of that for me. And for those of you that were a little bit late joining the program, I'll give you a quick review of how you can actually learn from what Robert Kiyosaki had just taught us, and also how you can use this to grow your life and your business. Let me see if I can share. Let me change to the, okay, I've got, okay. You should be able to see this on your screen. For this is basically what Robert just spoke to us about. Let me see if I can make this a little bit bigger. Okay, so this is the notes that we just took, and these are some of the things that Robert just taught us. If you joined us a little bit late, this is your chance to learn what you missed. If you came to us and enjoyed the session, this is also a chance you can do a screenshot, and this can give you some notes for review. Remember, the first thing that Robert spoke to us about is the income statement. He was talking about how a lot of people like to show their college degree, like his poor dad. But he said, actually, the real test is the income statement. And he drew a picture here on the screen that you can see about the income statement. And he was saying that most people, their income comes from a job. And he says the typical wisdom in school, if you remembered, is go to school, get good grades, get a job, save your money, reduce your debt, and retire. But he was saying that that's not the best way to really determine your financial future. He said that actually for most people, your job, most of the money you make from your job goes out to taxes. And he said a better thing to do is what he called pay yourself first. In other words, take your income from your job and use it to get assets. And so when you take and you buy assets, those create cash flow that can pay your expenses. And when you buy assets, you don't need to pay tax on them as well. They're actually considered liabilities. And he was saying that most people, their idea of life is to get a job, to live below what you earn, to save a little bit money, but all of your money goes out in taxes. And he says, actually, he doesn't even save dollars. for him, he says he bought gold, he's buying silver, he's buying Bitcoin, he's buying commodities. And so that's a good question for us to ask ourselves as well. What is your main source of income? With Myaladdin, you have incredible opportunities as merchants, as consumers. You have an opportunity to earn and also to save. But what are you doing with the money that you have? Is most of it going into tax? Are you actually using it to acquire assets? And he talked about the difference between assets and liabilities. And he said that assets are the secret to long-term wealth. And what is it that he calls an asset? He mentioned real estate, which he says he's been very successful in. Property is real estate. He talked about rental apartments and other real estate that he has. He also talked about paper assets, and he mentioned Apple and some others as well, which are stocks. And he mentioned commodities, gold, silver, and he also includes Bitcoin as a commodity. He talked about businesses. Many of you in Myaladdin are business owners, you're merchants. And so that's one possibility as an asset, is owning a business. And he mentioned something very interesting. He talked about debt, and he said rich use debt to buy assets, and poor people use debt to buy liabilities. So what's an asset? A lot of people think their house or their car is an asset, but he says actually, what is it that gives you cash flow? Is the cash flowing in or the cash flowing out? So if you're using debt to buy a house, to buy a car that you're going to live in, then that's actually a liability. But if you're buying real estate, properties to rent, commodities that you can sell, those become cash flow. The next thing that he talked about was cash flow quadrant. And he mentioned in the cash flow quadrant that most people are on the E and S side. And the E is for employee, the S is for self-employed. But he said the rich people, and he mentioned us in Myaladdinz, as we're the people who are on the right side. The right side are merchants, business owners, and also investors. And so you want to be on the right side of the cash flow quadrant. He also mentioned the tax that each type of person pays in the cash flow quadrant. He said employees pay about 40% of their income in tax. Self-employed, it's 60% in tax. But he says if you're a business owner, it's 20%. And if you're an investor, you can actually pay zero tax. And so he talked about the 4 different quadrants. My question for you and how to apply this is ask yourself, which quadrant are you in? If you're in the E, you're an employee. You have a job. Some of you might be self-employed. You're not working for somebody else. Your job is working for yourself. And he talked about how his mother wanted him to be a doctor, but he didn't have the grades to actually be successful. And so he couldn't be self-employed. Then he talked about being a business owner and how he owns several companies. And he also is an investor in real estate and in commodities. And so where are you? Are you an employee? Are you self-employed? Are you a business owner or merchant? Or are you an investor? When you get money from your job, even if it's self-employed or from your business, what do you do with that money? Are you putting it into commodities and real estate and other investments, into assets? Or are you spending that money and increasing your liabilities? Going on to the next thing that he spoke about, it's actually what we call the 4 intelligences. And he said, everyone has 4 intelligence. You might be stronger in one of these than the other 4, but every single person is part of these 4 intelligences. Everybody has mental, they have emotional, they have physical, and they have spiritual. If you're looking at mental, he related each one of these to Myaladdinz, to our business. And he said mental is basically the language of money, how you talk about finance, how you talk about money, how you think about money. He also talked about physical. When he talked about physical, he's mentioned the ability to sell. You need to know how to speak, how to sell things to others. He talked about emotional. He talked about all the fears that we have and how many of us are afraid of failing. And then he also talked about self-esteem, our spiritual. And he said self-esteem is basically when you fail, you stand up. And he mentioned that oftentimes when we fall down and we stand back up, it's the universe, it's the world around us asking us a question. What do I need to learn? So when you face obstacles, when you face failures, when you face troubles, instead of asking, why did this happen to me? The question should be, what is it that I need to learn? It also gives us a thing that we need to work on. He says we need to grow in all 4 of these areas. Schools don't teach financial education. We need to learn. And we can learn from speakers like Robert Kiyosaki and others in Myaladdinz. He says we need to learn how to sell. We need to learn how to improve our physical intelligence. And he says we don't need to be afraid. He says a lot of times we're afraid of failing, but we need to actually move forward. When you're most afraid, that's your greatest opportunity. That means you're challenging something, you're growing, you're moving forward. He talked about the 3 sides of a coin. You know, most of the time you always hear that there's 2 sides of a coin. This is the first time I've heard from Robert that there's 3 sides of a coin. He said there's actually the left, there's the right, and there's the edge. That almost everything in life has 2 sides, a right, a wrong, a rich, a poor, a smart, or stupid, left, right, capitalist, Marxist, conservative, liberal. There's opportunities, there's crises. But he said, you don't need to necessarily be on one side or the other. The best place to be is to stand on the edge and look at both sides. I thought that's a very powerful lesson. A lot of times we think things are good, bad, dark, light. We always look at the 2 sides of things. But we need to change our thinking to think about that 3rd side, the edge. Be able to find both the good and the bad in every situation. Maybe in your life right now with the current situation around the world, you're facing different difficulties. But remember, he said, at this point in time is an incredible point of opportunities as well. And then he mentioned the markets. He mentioned the bull goes up the stairs and the bears go out the window. So bulls climb with the stock market and then bears fall. It's when the market falls. And he said the market has basically been climbing since 1971. but in 2020 to 2030, it's going to fall. And you can look at it and say, this is the worst time in history. But he also said there's more opportunity in a crash. So be open for those opportunities that lie ahead. He mentioned that real emotion is knowing your financial statement and getting control of all your four intelligences. And then he also talked about David and Goliath. With David and Goliath, it's a story that many people have heard. It's a young boy fighting a giant. And he compared that young boy to the entrepreneur. Many of you in this session are actually entrepreneurs. You're people who are business owners. You're people who are thinking about how you can be successful in the world today. And we're all against the corporations. And he mentioned that many of the biggest corporations are failing at this time. Restaurants are going out of business. Businesses are shutting down. It's a time in the marketplace where people are losing their jobs to big companies. But he said, what's the secret of success in this story? And he says it's that little bitty stone in the sling. And what is that stone? It's knowledge, it's information, it's learning. The real education, look at your financial statements, get control of your four intelligences, and you can defeat the giants in life. You can be more successful than the largest corporations. What's the difference between you and them? You're learning. You're part of Myaladdin. You're here today, and you're joining us for our programs and our courses to be more successful in life. And then he ended with the story of his flight in Vietnam. I won't retell the story. Hopefully, most of you heard that story. But there was one thing that he said that really stuck out to me. He talked about the training that he had that helped him to be successful when difficulties came, when those crashes came. And he said this, don't pull back when the engine quits. I thought that's a powerful metaphor. A lot of times when things get difficult, when obstacles get in our way, when the engine seems to quit in life, our natural intention, our natural possibility is to pull back. But he said that's not wrong. In training, they taught him that what you really need to do to survive is to push forward. I thought that's quite an incredible thought about the world today. A lot of people are pulling back with the current situation in the world. Instead, they should be pushing forward, and they should be practicing now. Because of the practice, because of the training, we can all survive. And that's what Myaladdin is really doing for all of us. It's giving us an opportunity to train, to be businessmen, to be entrepreneurs, to add assets to our life, to learn how to control our financial statement and get control of our four intelligence of mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual, so that we can not only survive, but to thrive. So I'll just leave this on the screen again for you just a second. If you would like to take a snapshot of this, let me see if I can reduce it just a slight so you can get everything in the screen. So you can take a snapshot of this and give yourself a little bit of review. Go back and look at this and then ask yourself some of those questions. Am I living on a paycheck, or am I adding assets to my life? Am I an employee or self-employed, or am I moving over into the business and the investment side? Am I growing my four intelligences, my physical language of money, my ability to sell, conquering my fears, and falling and standing right back up and moving forward. The market today is a bear market. It's going to crash, but there's incredible opportunities. Do I have my eyes open to see those opportunities? And when I look at the world, how do I see it? Do I see it as black and white, left and right or wrong? Or am I able to look at everything in life and see both sides, and then look at both sides and make wise decisions, because there's opportunities everywhere? And then to grow that knowledge so that you can actually be successful. And don't pull back, but push forward. And you'll not only survive, but you'll also thrive. So Robert's taught us some powerful lessons. What I'd like to do now is share with you a couple of Robert's books as well. Robert mentioned a couple of his books, and also the cash flow game. If you've read some of his books, you'll realize that Robert has 24 books, as I mentioned in the introduction. And the very first book that he shared is known as the Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And let me see. I need to get that shared for you. So you should be able to see that on your screen now. Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Rich Dad, Poor Dad is actually the first book that Robert Kiyosaki wrote, and it's a bestseller. And in that book, he gives some very powerful lessons. Some of those same lessons he just mentioned in his talk. And so I'd like to give you a few quotes from this book as we're talking about Robert Kiyosaki and about the things that he learns, that we learn from him. If you look at the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad, I believe it's available in most languages around that we have online. And he talks about the difference between poor people and also rich people. He mentioned this in this talk that he just shared with us about the lessons he learned from his poor dad, which was a school teacher, which focused on his PhD and being right. And he also talked about his rich dad that taught him lessons about how to be successful, about financial education. One of the biggest principles, if you listen to Robert Kiyosaki, and even the idea of the job and the cash flow and the assets, is that rich people work for money. I mean, poor people work for money, and rich people have money work for them. So let me ask you a question. Is your money working for you now? In your own life, are you taking that money from your job, from your assets, from your business, and using it to actually grow your cash flow? Cash flow is a key word. And what is that one thing that you might be able to add in the next month, in the next few months, maybe in the next 1 year, that's going to help money work for you? So big question for yourself. Is your money working for you now, or are you just getting a paycheck and then using your paycheck? Are you taking part of that paycheck and putting it into something, an asset that's going to work for you for the future? Maybe you're already doing that. List down what some of your assets are, and then maybe add one thing that you can actually add to that asset column that's going to help you to help make money work for you. Another lesson from the book is exactly that. Rich people acquire assets. Poor people acquire liabilities that they think are assets. I like his definition. If you read the book, he didn't mention this just now, but if you read his book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, he gives us an incredible definition of assets. And it's probably one of the most important lessons I've learned from Robert Kiyosaki. Assets put money in your pocket. Liabilities take money out of your pocket. So if you ask yourself, is a house an asset? Is it taking money out of your bank account, or is it putting money in? If you're renting out property, it's probably putting money into your pocket. If you're just living there, then maybe it's a liability because it takes money away every month. Or maybe a car. If you're using like Grab or sharing your car and the share or maybe delivering food, products, and services using your vehicle, then it might be putting money in your pocket. If it's just used by you, then it's possible to be taking money out of your pocket. So then the question is, what are your assets? And what are your liabilities? And you need to list these down. This is something you may not want to do now, but just jot it on a piece of paper. Make your own financial statement. List down things that are putting money into your bank account, into your assets, into your cash flow. Then list those things that are taking out your money from your account. If you want to get a very quick look at your bank statement. What are you paying for? And what is putting money into your bank account? You might have other assets as well, which is property, real estate, liabilities. You might have other things, but make a list of each. That is something for you to think about, something for you to learn for the future. And then here's a good question. With all the talk that Robert just mentioned about assets and building assets so that they give cash flow to your life, what is an asset that you could add in the next couple of months? What is an asset you have right now that you could actually increase that will put more money in your pocket? The other thing that you might also think about is, what is one of the liabilities that you could reduce in the next couple of months? There's a lot of things that we spend money on that maybe are not necessary. If you read the book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, a lot of times we take our income from our paycheck and we buy things that we want. Robert says that's the wrong way to do it. Take your money from your paycheck and buy assets. Those assets will create cash flow to buy the things that you want. And those assets will keep generating cash flow for you for the future. So instead of buying something that is quickly gone, buy an asset that's going to keep paying you for the future, and then use the cash flow from that asset to get the things that you want. He mentions this in the book. In the beginning, a job creates cash flow to pay for your expenses. This is where we all start. Pretty much everyone starts with a job. But we need to have the mindset, the thinking, the plan, the goal to move to a point where the assets create enough cash flow to cover our expenses. A lot of people in the world are suffering today because they lost their paycheck and they have no assets to cover their expenses. So now's a good time for us also to think about what assets we can acquire that can help us to cover our expenses for the future. And the good thing about the opportunity at the moment is whenever there's a market crash, whenever the market is in a difficult situation, it's always incredible opportunities to get assets at a very good price because people need to sell them just to cover their expenses. And so now there's incredible opportunity. So here's a question. Is your paycheck going mostly toward assets or expenses? And what can you do to change that? One of the things that he mentions in the Rich Dad, Poor Dad book is to have a budget. In other words, decide what you're going to spend and how much you're going to spend on different things in your life. This is it's actually one of the key principles of the Rich Dad, Poor Dad book. He says that pay yourself first, even when it's uncomfortable. What he means by that is basically invest a little bit of your income before you pay for anything else. Use some of your income to start acquiring assets before you start paying other things. Take out something for assets first. In other words, pay yourself first. So what are you willing to put aside each month in order to invest in assets and to order to get assets that will generate cash flow for you? It's not just getting assets, but getting assets that are going to generate cash flow for you. And this is another incredible principle from the book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Wealth. Wealth is the number of days you can survive forward if you stopped working tomorrow. In other words, how many days can you survive if you lost your job or you stopped working? Is it 1 month? Could you cover your expenses for 2 months, 1 year, 2 years? How long could you survive if you stopped working? If you have more assets than your expenses, then it can go on almost indefinite. So the real question is, if you stopped working today, how long could you survive? If you have a short number there of months, then that means you don't have enough assets. You need to start focusing on acquiring assets that will give you cash flow. And this is another important principle from the book as well, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And he talks about this in one of the chapters. Saying, I can't afford it, shuts down your brain. That's not the question we should be thinking. That's not the way we should be thinking. Instead, we should be asking, how can I afford it? If there's something in your life that you want and you can't afford it, ask yourself the question instead, what can I do in order to be able to have that, in order to be able to afford that? And if you change your questions, you change your life. So how much do you need to live each month to live the life of your dreams? And what is your plan to acquire the assets to make it possible? In other words, how much money do you need every month to survive? How much money do you need every month to live the life that you want? And then how can you get assets to make that possible? Another interesting principle, rich people work to learn new skills. Poor people work for immediate income. If you read the book, one of the chapters he talks about, and I encourage you to get this book if you haven't read it already, is that if you're have the same mindset as a rich person, you're looking for skills, for knowledge, to increase your abilities, to increase what you can do and how you think and how you can be more successful. Find jobs that will actually grow you as a person. And then those things will actually help you to be more financially successful in the future. Don't just get a job that pays the paycheck. So my question for you would be, are you more afraid of losing your job, losing your paycheck, or being stuck in that job for the rest of your life? What are you learning? Maybe you need to change what you're doing, your job that you have, in order to learn something new to be more successful. The nice thing about Myaladdin, it gives you a lot of opportunities to improve your skills, your knowledge, your abilities, so that you can be more successful in your life. Poor people wait around for luck and opportunity. They think if they just wait long enough, if they just endure long enough, at some point they're going to get lucky. Opportunity is going to come. But he says, rich people create opportunities out of obstacles. The mindset is very, very different. Don't just wait for something to happen. Take whatever you're given, even if it's an obstacle, and turn it into an opportunity. That's kind of what Robert was talking about in the video today when he talked about the stock market crash and increase. He was saying there's more opportunities in the crash. There's more opportunities as things get difficult. Look for those opportunities. Create opportunities out of obstacles. What is an obstacle that you're facing right now in your business, in your finances? How can you take that opportunity, that obstacle, that difficulty, and turn it into an opportunity? What are you doing or do you plan to do in the next 1 year to make those financial goals possible? And then this is something he mentioned today in the talk as well. It's not how much money you make that matters. It's how much money you keep. He didn't mention this specifically, but he talked about taxes and the fact that taxes take away a lot of our paycheck. But if you take your money, instead of using it to buy things and use it to get assets, then you reduce your taxes and you also generate cash flow. If you're giving away all your money in taxes, it's not as valuable as keeping some assets to generate cash flow. So how could you reduce your taxes? Reduce your expenses? What liabilities could you replace with an asset? These are all lessons from the book that he mentioned a little bit today. And you can actually take this book and read it more effectively and apply these same lessons to your life. Another book that Robert Kiyosaki talks about, he's got 24 books. His second book is Cash Flow Quadrant. I know today he talked about more than these. He talked about fake. He talked about what the rich want you to know. He talked about his books he wrote with Donald Trump. I didn't know what he was going to talk about, but I could almost guarantee you he was going to talk about these two books, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and Cash Flow. And so let's look at the book Cash Flow. It's very similar to the first book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. One of the key principles of this book is to seek financial intelligence. Learn how to manage money, how to manage finances, how to manage assets and liabilities. In other words, these are more important than job security. If you get your financial intelligence, then you don't need to worry about your job because you know how to make money. So what are you learning in your current job? And he talked about the 4 cash flow quadrants. He always talks about these 4 cash flow quadrants. Remember the employee, the self-employed, the business owner, and the investor. If you read the cash flow quadrant, he tells you that it's not so easy to change from one quadrant to the other. It's a very different way of thinking. You have to change the way you think and how you look at the world in order to change your cash flow quadrant. If you're going to go from employee, where you're working for someone else, to self-employed, where you're working for yourself, the mindset is very different. With an employee, you think, oh, I can always get another job. But if you're self-employed, you have a lot of thinking that is involved because you don't want to fail. If you're a business owner, going from self-employed to running a whole business, a whole system, a whole process, is very different than just working a job. And then if you think about investing, it's also a whole different way of thinking. And so every time you want to change from one cash flow quadrant to another, it's a change of thinking. He says, when someone asks me, this is from the book, when someone asks me, what do I have to do to move from the left side of the cash flow quadrant to the right side? My response is, it's not what you have to do that needs to change. It's how you think that needs to change. Your thinking is your most powerful asset. If you want to change over to that right side of owning a business, of being an investor, you have to change the way you think. So what's your current mindset? Do you have the mindset of an employee? Do you have the mindset of a self-employed person? Do you have the mindset of a business owner of systems and processes? Do you have the mindset of an investor? And what's your plan to move forward? Where do you want to be? How are you going to get there? The second principle that is a big part of the cash flow quadrant book is to mind your own business. What he means by that is set your financial goals. What's your goal for monthly income, for yearly income, for cash flow? And what are you going to do to create it? So what are your goals for the rest of 2020? Robert said 2020 is going to be a very interesting year. It's already a very interesting year. And he says it's going to be a period of 2020, I think in the video he said until 2030. So what are your goals for the next 5 years, for the next 10 years? What are your financial goals? And what's your plan to reach this? You know, Richard Tan, our chairman for Success Resources, he always tells the story about Robert Kiyosaki and him having chicken rice together. Maybe he'll tell this story sometime in one of his sessions where they're having chicken rice together. And Robert Kiyosaki was eating chicken rice with him. And he asked Richard, how much money do you want to make next year? And then Richard said how much he wanted to make. And then Robert asked him, what plan do you have to make that amount of money? And Richard thought, and he said, I don't know. Then Robert said, you got a problem. And Richard thought, I'm having lunch, I'm eating lunch with Robert Kiyosaki, and now I've got a problem. What am I going to do to get my financial goals for the future? He tells the story, maybe he'll tell that story sometime. But the idea is you need to ask yourself the same question. What's your plan? You need to have a plan. And what actions are you taking now to make that plan a reality? In cash flow quadrant, he says, create your own cash flow and work on your goals by reducing your expenses, by clearing your bad debts, and by continuing to invest in assets. He talked about two different types of debt. Robert didn't mention this in the video that he just shared with us, in the talk that he just shared with us. He didn't mention the difference between bad debt and good debt. When he just spoke to us, he mentioned about his poor dad using debt to acquire liabilities and his rich dad using debt to acquire assets. In other words, there's some debt that is bad and there's some debt is good. If you go into debt to get a liability that keeps taking money out of your pocket, then that's considered bad debt. But he says if you go into debt to acquire assets that put money and keep putting money into your pocket, then that's good debt. That's one of the other things he talks about in the cash flow quadrant. So one way is to see what expenses of the bad debt we can reduce, what bad debt can we pay off, and what investments can we make in assets. And this is one of the key principles of cash flow quadrant. It's the investor who's risky, not the investment. In other words, it's the person that's the risk, not the investment itself. Almost any investment can be profitable if you know how to do it properly, if you know how to evaluate it. And so the key factor is the investor. So are you growing your financial intelligence? Are you becoming financially literate? Are you becoming financially intelligent? Are you learning from business? Myaladdinz gives you a chance to do that and to learn from business, from being a merchant, from the consumer rewards program. What can you learn about finances? How risky are you as an investor? Are you high risk or low risk? It's not the investment that's high risk or low risk. It's you as the investor that's high risk and low risk. Do you know when to get in, when to get out, what to do, what is wise, when the time is right? Is it an opportunity or not? You need to have that wisdom. You're the risky part of investment. What is it that you need to learn? Robert focuses on property. He focuses on commodities. Maybe for you, it might be the same. It might be something different. You don't have to do everything. In fact, he talks about he has no interest in paper investments, which are stocks. It's not that he says they're bad, but it's just not what he's interested in. He has property. He doesn't need to worry about those. Find some area to focus. What's that one area where you want to focus and what do you need to learn? And where can you learn it? Decide the kind of investor you want to be. Be a problem-solving investor. Because a problem-solving investor looks through all the details to find the opportunities to learn big. This is another quote from the book. Do you see obstacles or do you see problems to solve? Acceptance of disappointment. Every disappointment teaches a lesson in disguise. If you read the cash flow quadrant book, he says that every disappointment is the universe trying to teach us something. It's a lesson disguised as a disappointment. When you face disappointments in life, what can you learn from them? They don't have to be a losing experience. They can be a learning experience. Life is telling you there's something you need to learn. I think he just mentioned that also in the most recent video. Any disappointments lately? What is life telling you that you need to learn? As Robert just spoke to us, he talked about emotional and spiritual intelligence. When Robert was talking to us, he was talking about falling down and getting up. And he was saying there's an opportunity to learn. What is it that you need to learn? Seek advice from mentors is another chapter in the book. Surround yourself with people that have a similar mindset and take advice from the experts. This is where these Magic Your Life talks give you opportunities to actually learn from experts. And also, being part of Myaladdin lets you surround yourself with people who have that same entrepreneurial mindset, that same education mindset, so that you can actually grow and learn and get advice and learn from each other. So who are your mentors? Who can you seek out as a mentor? What area of your life do you need a mentor? These are all good questions to ask yourself. One of my mentors is Richard Tan. Also, I've had a chance to have people that are mentors to me, not in person, but through their books, through their videos, through their training. Even these cash flow quadrant book is a mentor in a sense, and that's someone who has experience that can teach. We just heard from Robert, and he also gave us some lessons. In a sense, that can also be a mentor. And then you need to have real life people in your life that are mentors to you. Leaders, examples, people that you look up to, people who are where you want to be. Last thing I want to talk about, which I know he was going to talk about in this last talk. I mean, Robert, every time I've heard about Robert, he's always talked about 3 different things: Rich Dad, Poor Dad, cash flow quadrant, and his cash flow game. And so that's why I prepared these different little lessons together for you as a supplement to Robert's talk. But what are some of the lessons from the cash flow game? When you think about the cash flow game, what are some lessons that we can learn from that? I wonder how many of you have actually played the cash flow game. It's actually one of my favorites. The cash flow game, I've played it many, many times. And I'd like to end with a couple lessons that I learned from the cash flow game. One of the things that he mentioned is to simplify and get out of the rat race faster. Simplify your life. What are the things that you can reduce now so that later you can enjoy your life? When you're playing the game, there's 2 ways to get out of the rat race. One is to increase your assets. One is to reduce the unnecessary expenses. Both of them allow you to get out of the rat race. What's the rat race? It's working for a paycheck. Having your paycheck and depending on a paycheck. To get out of the rat race means you don't depend on a paycheck anymore. So what is something you can do to simplify? It also has small deals and big deals. Look with this, and in the game, one of the strategies is to start with the small deals, the little ones that don't cost so much. And as you learn, the big deals will become opportunities for you. So what's a possible small deal or small opportunity that you can explore? Another thing the cash flow game teaches you is that a single source of income is dangerous. You need to have multiple sources of income. You need to have assets adding to your cash flow. Many people in the world today are suffering because they have only one income. What assets can you add to give you additional income? How can you add some assets and additional sources of income in the next couple of months? Reduce your expenses and increase your cash flows, another lesson. If you reduce both of those at the same time, then you can actually become more successful. So how can you reduce your expense and increase your cash flow? Both those are ways to get out of the rat race. And then if you've played the game, you'll know that you have different occupations that you can choose. You might draw a card that starts you out as a doctor. You might draw a card that starts you out as a plumber. And the income is very, very different. but both of them can get out of the rat race. Both of them can become successful. People normally with more income have more expenses. People with less income have less expenses. So it's not really your income that determines your success. It's how you use that income. So what is one thing that you can do based on what you heard from Robert Kiyosaki today, or from some of these lessons from his books, to improve your financial literacy and results? What are some of the things you can learn? Robert is one of the best teachers of financial education. Maybe you might want to get one of these books, Cash Flow Quadrant, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, or even the Cash Flow Game. I know we have some people in different places around the world who are also sponsoring Cash Flow Game. It's a great way to learn in a safe environment. As I conclude for today, just to remind you, we have these upcoming events available for Myaladdinz members. This week, 8th October, Thursday night, 7 p.m. Vietnam time, we have our 4th session of Magic Your Life. You'll want to go in and join us for that. You also have the opportunity to attend Tony Robbins' Unleash the Power Within virtual. That's October 22nd. So that's an opportunity for you as well. You have an opportunity for Date with Destiny on December. And then make sure you sign up for Nick Vujicic on 7th November 2020. He'll be with us talking about how you can have no limits for your life. Thanks for joining us tonight, today, this afternoon, this evening, whatever time it is, wherever you are. We hope that you've heard and learned some incredible lessons from Robert Kiyosaki and from his experience with his Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and how the situation in the world today affects your financial future. We thank you for joining us. Please join us again this coming Thursday and also next month for Nick Vujicic. I hope that you have an incredible weekend and that this has been a success for you. We wish you all measures of health, success, happiness in your relationships, in your business, and in your life. Thank you, everyone, and thanks for joining for today's session. Have a great evening, everyone.